When my daughter Sarah confessed she was having an affair with my husband David, my world didn't just shatter, it exploded. For 15 years, I had built a life, a family, a home. In one sentence, everything I believed in turned to ash. This is the story of how I went from being a devoted wife and mother to a woman who learned that sometimes the people closest to you are the ones holding the knife aimed at your back. If you want to know how I made them both pay for what they did, make sure to follow till the end. This is a story of betrayal, revenge, and justice that will leave you speechless. My name is Margaret Chen, and I am 45 years old. Until 3 months ago, I thought I had a perfect life. A successful husband, a beautiful daughter, a house in the suburbs, and enough savings to retire comfortably. I was wrong about everything. It was a Tuesday evening when my entire existence collapsed. I remember the exact time, 6:47 p.m. I was in the kitchen preparing dinner, roasted chicken with vegetables, David's favorite. Sarah, my 24-year-old daughter, had come home unexpectedly from her apartment downtown. She said she needed to talk to me about something important. I remember smiling, thinking maybe she was finally going to tell me about a new boyfriend, or perhaps she had gotten a promotion at work. I poured us both a glass of wine and sat down at the kitchen table, the same table where we had celebrated birthdays, Christmas mornings, and countless family dinners. "Mom," she said, and her voice was shaking. "I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen to everything before you react." My heart started beating faster. The tone of her voice wasn't right. This wasn't good news. I gripped my wine glass tighter and nodded. "I'm pregnant," she said. My first reaction was confusion, then joy. My daughter was going to have a baby. I was going to be a grandmother. But then I saw her face. There was no happiness there, only fear and something else, guilt. "That's wonderful, honey," I said, reaching for her hand. "Who's the father? Why didn't you tell me you were seeing someone seriously?" She pulled her hand away and looked down at the table. The silence that followed was suffocating. I could hear the kitchen clock ticking, the sound of a car passing outside, my own breathing. "Mom," she whispered, "the father is David." For a moment, I didn't understand. David? My husband, David? Sarah's stepfather, David? The man who had raised her since she was 9 years old. The man I had been married to for 15 years. What? The word came out of my mouth like a gasp. "I'm so sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. It's been going on for 2 years." 2 years. 730 days. While I had been planning anniversary dinners, booking romantic getaways, celebrating milestones, my husband had been sleeping with my daughter. My daughter had been sleeping with my husband. I stood up so fast that my chair fell backward and crashed against the floor. The wine glass slipped from my hand and shattered, red liquid spreading across the white tiles like blood. "Get out," I said. My voice didn't sound like mine. It was cold, mechanical. "Mom, please, get out of my house." Sarah ran out crying, and I stood there in the kitchen, surrounded by broken glass and spilled wine, my entire world reduced to fragments on the floor. When David came home an hour later, I was sitting in the dark living room. I hadn't cleaned up the mess. I hadn't moved. I had just sat there replaying every moment of the last 2 years in my mind, looking for signs I had missed. "Margaret, why are all the lights off?" He flipped the switch and saw my face. "What's wrong? What happened?" "Sarah was here," I said calmly. "She told me everything." I watched the color drain from his face. I watched him transform from my confident, successful husband into a cornered animal. And in that moment, I felt something I had never felt before. Pure, crystalline hatred. Margaret, I can explain what, David? Explain how you've been with my daughter for 2 years? Explain how you got her pregnant? Please, I'm dying to hear this explanation. He fell to his knees. Actually, fell to his knees and started crying. It was a mistake. It just happened. I love you, Margaret. I never meant for this to happen. It just happened, I repeated slowly. For 2 years. 730 days. It just kept happening, over and over again. I stood up and walked past him to our bedroom. I locked the door and called my sister, Patricia, in Boston. Patty, I said when she answered, I need you to come to Chicago. Now. Tonight. And I need you to bring the name of your divorce lawyer. That night, lying alone in my bed while David slept on the couch, I did something I hadn't done in 20 years. I opened my old journal, the one I had kept when I was in my 20s, ambitious and independent, before I became a wife and mother. On the last page, I had written something I had completely forgotten. Never let anyone make you lose yourself. Your strength is your own. I had lost myself. For 15 years, I had poured everything into being the perfect wife, the perfect mother, the perfect homemaker. I had given up my career in real estate to support David's ambitions. I had sacrificed my dreams to fund Sarah's education. I had spent $180,000 of my inheritance from my parents to pay for Sarah's private university and graduate school. I had paid for everything. The house we lived in, I had put down the $150,000 deposit from my mother's life insurance. The car David drove, I had co-signed the loan when his credit wasn't good enough. Sarah's apartment downtown, I paid the $1,200 monthly rent because she said her entry-level job didn't pay enough. I calculated the numbers in my head. In the 15 years of our marriage, I had contributed approximately $420,000 to our joint life. David had contributed maybe $180,000. The rest went to his investments and business opportunities that never materialized. And Sarah, my beautiful daughter, I had spent $240,000 on her education, housing, car, and various emergencies over the years. I had taken money from my retirement fund to ensure she never struggled like I had. $660,000. That was the price of my betrayal. The next morning, I woke up at 5 a.m. David was still on the couch, his face puffy from crying. I looked at him and felt nothing. Not anger anymore, not sadness, just a cold, clear determination. I got dressed in my best business suit, a charcoal gray Armani I had bought for a job interview years ago, but never wore because David said it made me look too aggressive. I put on makeup carefully, I straightened my hair, I looked at myself in the mirror and saw someone I hadn't seen in a very long time. Margaret Chen, before she became Mrs. David Morrison. My first stop was the Bank of America on Madison Street. I had called ahead and made an appointment with the branch manager, Mr. Harrison, whom I had known for 8 years. Mrs. Morrison, he said, shaking my hand. What can I do for you today? I need to separate all of my accounts from my husband's access. Every joint account, every authorized user arrangement, everything. I want it done today. Mr. Harrison's eyebrows rose slightly, but he was too professional to ask questions. Of course. Let me pull up your accounts. We spent 2 hours going through everything. We closed the joint checking account and I opened a new one in my name only. We removed David as a beneficiary from my retirement accounts. We canceled the credit cards where he was an authorized user. We put alerts on every account to notify me of any attempts to access or change anything. Mrs. Morrison, Mr. Harrison said as we finished, I have to ask, is everything all right? Are you in any danger? His concern was genuine. more genuine than my own husband had shown me in years. I'm not in danger, Mr. Harrison. I'm just finally protecting myself. My next stop was the office of Patricia's divorce lawyer, Amanda Chen. No relation, but I took it as a good sign. Patricia had flown in on the red-eye and was waiting for me there. Amanda Chen was a woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and eyes that had seen every kind of marriage disaster. She listened to my story without interruption, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. "Mrs. Morrison," she said when I finished, "what your husband did is not just morally reprehensible. In some circumstances, relationships like this can raise serious legal questions, especially given the family dynamics involved." Sarah was 22 when it started. She's 24 now, I said quietly. So she was an adult. That changes the criminal aspect, but it doesn't change your right to a very favorable divorce settlement. Illinois recognizes adultery as grounds for divorce, and the nature of this particular situation will work heavily in your favor. We spent 4 hours planning my strategy. Amanda was thorough, ruthless, and exactly what I needed. First, she said, we need to document everything. Every text message, every financial transaction, every piece of evidence that proves this affair. Do you have access to your husband's phone or computer? He leaves his iPad at home. The password is our anniversary date. He never changed it. Amanda smiled grimly. Then tonight, you're going to photograph everything. Every message with your daughter, every suspicious transaction, everything. We need a complete record. Second, she continued, we need to protect your assets. You've already done well by separating your bank accounts. Now we need to inventory everything in the house, every piece of jewelry, every valuable item, every document. Make a list with photographs. I want to know exactly what belongs to you versus what's joint property. Third, and here her voice became harder, we need to prepare for them to fight dirty. Your husband will likely try to minimize his responsibility. Your daughter may try to claim various things to deflect blame. We need to be ready for every possible attack and have our evidence organized. Patricia squeezed my hand. Maggie, are you sure you want to do this? It's going to be brutal. The details will come out. People will know. I looked at my sister, the only person in the world I knew I could trust completely. Patty, for 15 years, I've let people walk all over me. I've been the understanding wife, the generous mother, the woman who never caused problems. And what did it get me? My husband betraying me with my own daughter? I'm done being nice. I'm done protecting people who don't protect me. That evening, I returned home to find David sitting at the kitchen table. He had cleaned up the broken glass and wine from the night before. He looked like he hadn't slept, his eyes red and swollen, his shirt wrinkled. Margaret, please, can we talk? I set my purse down carefully on the counter. Talk. I know what I did was unforgivable. I know I've destroyed everything. But please, can we try to work through this? I'll do anything. Therapy, counseling, whatever you want. I'll cut off all contact with Sarah. I'll do whatever it takes. Work through this, I repeated slowly, letting each word hang in the air. You want to work through the fact that you got my daughter pregnant. He flinched as if I had slapped him. It's not... Sarah said she's not keeping the baby. She's going to take care of it, and the pregnancy. How convenient, I said, my voice dripping with contempt. Destroy the evidence. Make it all go away as if it never happened. Margaret, that's not fair. Fair? My voice rose for the first time. You want to talk about fair? Was it fair when you were sneaking around with my daughter while I was sleeping in our bed? Was it fair when you were using my money to take her to expensive hotels? Yes, David, I checked the credit card statements. The Plaza Hotel in New York, the Peninsula in Chicago, the Ritz-Carlton in San Francisco, all those business trips you took. You were with her, weren't you? His silence was answer enough. He couldn't even look at me. Get out, I said calmly. Margaret, get out of my house. This house that I paid for with my mother's life insurance money. Get out now, or I'm calling the police and telling them you're trespassing. You can't kick me out. This is my house too. I have rights. I pulled out my phone and showed him the screen. It was a photo of our mortgage documents, the ones that clearly showed my name as the primary owner, with David as a co-signer, the ones that showed my $150,000 down payment from my inheritance. Actually, David, this is my house. I own it. You're just a co-signer on the mortgage, and you have until tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. to get your things and leave, or I'm changing the locks and putting everything you own on the front lawn for the neighbors to see. The threat of public humiliation worked. He stood up, his face pale. You've really thought this through, haven't you? I had a very productive day, I said. Now get out. He left that night with 2 suitcases, throwing clothes into them haphazardly while I watched him from the doorway. I watched him load them into his car, the Mercedes I had co-signed for when his credit score was too low, and drive away into the night. Then I called a 24-hour locksmith and had every lock in the house changed. Front door, back door, garage, even the garden shed. By 2 a.m., David's keys were useless pieces of metal. At 3 a.m., when I was sure he wasn't coming back, I did what Amanda had instructed. I picked up David's iPad. He had left it behind in his panicked rush, and I systematically went through everything. What I found made me physically ill. There were hundreds of messages between David and Sarah, messages going back exactly 2 years, 3 months, and 24 days. The first message was from Sarah. I can't stop thinking about what happened last night. David's response, me neither, but we can't tell your mother. This has to stay between us. I read through them all, my stomach churning. I watched my daughter transform from my sweet child into someone I didn't recognize. I watched my husband manipulate her with messages like, your mother doesn't understand me like you do, and you're so much more mature than she is, and age is just a number. What we have is real. There were photos. I won't describe them. I can't. But I screenshot everything and uploaded it all to a secure cloud storage that only Amanda and I could access. I found the hotel receipts. Over 2 years, David had spent $47,000 on hotel rooms, expensive dinners, gifts, and trips with my daughter. $47,000 of my money because his salary went into our joint account, which was funded primarily by my inheritance investments. I found messages where Sarah asked him for money. I need $2,000 for a new laptop. Can you send me $500? I'm short on rent. I want to take a trip to Miami with my friends. Can you help? And every time, David sent the money. My money. I calculated it all. In 2 years, he had given Sarah approximately $85,000. Some directly, some through paying her rent, some through gifts and trips. $85,000 of the money I had contributed to our marriage. By 6 a.m., I had a complete dossier of evidence. Every message, every photo, every financial transaction, all organized by date with notes and highlights. I sent it all to Amanda's secure server. Then I did something I hadn't done in months. I called my old friend Jennifer, who worked at the Chicago Tribune as an investigative journalist. Maggie? She answered groggily. It's 6 in the morning. What's wrong? Jen, I need your advice on something. Off the record, as a friend, not as a journalist. Of course, what's going on? I told her everything. The affair, the pregnancy, the money, the evidence I had gathered. When I finished, there was a long silence. Maggie, I'm so sorry. That's... I don't even have words. What are you going to do? I'm divorcing him, but I want him to lose more than just me. He works at Kensington Financial, right? As a senior investment advisor. His entire job is built on trust, on being a respected family man, on having integrity. What happens if people find out what he really is? Jennifer was quiet for a moment. You're talking about destroying his career. I'm talking about consequences, I said. He destroyed my family. He betrayed my trust in the worst possible way. He stole my money to fund an affair with my daughter. Why should he get to walk away and continue his comfortable life? You're right, she said. He shouldn't. But, Maggie, are you prepared for what this means? If this goes public, Sarah will be exposed too. Everyone will know. Can you handle that? I thought about my daughter, the little girl I had raised, protected, and loved. The teenager I had stayed up with when she had nightmares. The young woman I had supported through college and beyond. That person was gone. In her place was someone who had betrayed me in the most intimate way possible. Sarah made her choices. Now she can live with the consequences. At 9 a.m., as promised, I started moving David's belongings to the front lawn. Everything he owned. Clothes, books, golf clubs, his collection of expensive watches, his signed sports memorabilia. I made neat piles on the grass. The neighbors started coming out to watch. Mrs. Patterson from next door, Mr. and Mrs. Kim from across the street, the young couple from 3 houses down. They stood on their porches and lawns, whispering to each other. At 10 a.m., David's car pulled up. He had clearly been staying at a hotel. He looked terrible, unshaven, wearing the same clothes from yesterday, his eyes red-shot. He got out of the car and stared at the piles of his belongings on the lawn. Margaret, what are you doing? The neighbors can see everything. I know, I said calmly. I want them to see. I want them to know exactly what kind of man you are. You're crazy, he hissed, walking toward me. You can't do this. I'll call the police. Please do, I said. And when they arrive, I'll explain to them that I'm the sole owner of this property, as proven by my mortgage documents, and you're trespassing. I'll also mention that I have evidence you've been stealing from our joint accounts to fund an inappropriate relationship. I'm sure they'll be very interested. He stopped walking. You wouldn't. Try me, David. I'm done protecting you. I'm done protecting anyone but myself. Mrs. Patterson approached cautiously. She was a woman in her 70s who had lived on our street for 40 years. She had known Sarah since she was 9 years old. Margaret, dear, is everything all right? Do you need me to call someone? Everything is fine, Mrs. Patterson. David is just collecting his things. He won't be living here anymore. Oh my, she said, looking at David with undisguised disgust. Well, if you need anything, dear, you just let me know. I'm right next door. It was a small moment, but it meant everything. My neighbors, my community, was choosing my side without even knowing the full story yet. David loaded his belongings into his car, making 3 trips. On the last trip, he came up to me one more time. I hope you're happy, he said bitterly. You've humiliated me in front of the entire neighborhood. David, I said, looking him directly in the eyes. You humiliated yourself. I'm just making sure everyone knows it. After he left, I went inside and made myself a cup of coffee. My hands were shaking, but not from fear or sadness, from adrenaline, from the power of finally standing up for myself. My phone rang. It was Sarah. Mom, what are you doing? David just called me crying. He said you threw all his stuff on the lawn and humiliated him in front of the neighbors. Yes, I said simply. David, this is crazy. You're acting insane. People make mistakes. You need to calm down and think rationally about this. Rationally? I repeated. Sarah, you had an affair with my husband, your stepfather, for 2 years. You got pregnant by him. You took money from him, money that was actually mine, to fund your lifestyle. And now you're telling me to be rational? It's not like that. She was crying now. You don't understand. What David and I have is real. We love each other. It's not just some sordid affair. Those words, we love each other, hit me like a physical blow. It was worse than the betrayal itself. She actually believed this was a love story. Sarah, I said slowly, let me make something very clear to you. As of today, you are no longer my daughter. I will not be paying your rent. I will not be giving you money. I will not be answering your calls. You chose David over me. Now you can figure out how to survive without me. Mom, no, please. I can't afford my apartment without your help. I'll be homeless. Then I suggest you ask David to support you. After all, you love each other, right? Real love should be worth something. Mom, please don't do this. I'm sorry. I'll break it off with David. I'll do anything. Just please don't cut me off. You should have thought about that 2 years ago, I said. Goodbye, Sarah. I hung up and immediately blocked her number. Then I blocked her on every social media platform, every messaging app, every possible way she could contact me. My phone rang again. Immediately. I didn't recognize the number. I answered. Mrs. Morrison, this is Detective Rodriguez from the Chicago Police Department. I need to ask you some questions about a complaint we received. My heart sunk. What kind of complaint? Your husband, David Morrison, filed a report claiming you've locked him out of his home and are withholding his property. He's also suggesting you may be experiencing some kind of mental health crisis. Can you tell me your side of the story? I took a deep breath and explained everything to Detective Rodriguez. I told him about the affair, about Sarah's pregnancy, about the financial documents proving I owned the house. I told him I had changed the locks because David was no longer welcome in my house, and that all his belongings had been placed on the lawn for him to collect, which he had done. Mrs. Morrison, Detective Rodriguez said after a long pause, I'm going to be honest with you. This is a civil matter, not a criminal one. You have every right to remove someone from your property if you're the legal owner. Your husband can file for divorce and sort out property division through the courts, but he can't force you to let him stay in your house. What about his claim that I'm having a mental health crisis? Ma'am, you sound perfectly coherent and rational to me. If your husband wants to pursue that angle, he'd need to get a court order, which requires actual evidence of incapacity. From what you've told me, it sounds like you're taking reasonable steps to protect yourself from a bad situation. Thank you, Detective. Mrs. Morrison, for what it's worth, I'm sorry you're going through this. Take care of yourself. After I hung up, I felt a wave of relief. David had tried to use the police to intimidate me, and it had backfired. Now there was an official record of his complaint and my response. The next morning, I met with Amanda again. She had reviewed all the evidence I had sent her. Margaret, this is one of the most well-documented cases of adultery I've ever seen, she said. We have messages, photos, financial records, everything. David is not going to be able to deny any of this. Good. I want him to pay for what he did, not just emotionally, financially, legally, every possible way. Here's what I'm proposing, Amanda said, spreading papers across her desk. We file for divorce on grounds of adultery. We demand full ownership of the house since you paid the down payment and the majority of the mortgage. We demand repayment of the $85,000 he gave to Sarah from your joint accounts. We demand he cover all your legal fees. And we demand full control of your retirement accounts and investments. What will he get? Nothing, Amanda said flatly. In a case like this, where he's committed adultery with your daughter and stolen marital funds to support the affair, the court is very unlikely to award him anything. He'll be lucky if he doesn't end up owing you money. What about Sarah? That's trickier, Amanda admitted. She's not party to your divorce, but we can pursue a civil case against her for the money you spent on her education, rent, and living expenses, arguing that these were conditional gifts based on the expectation of a normal mother-daughter relationship, which she violated. Will that work? It's a long shot, Amanda said honestly, but it might be worth it just to make a point. At minimum, we can stop paying her rent and bills immediately. And if she tries to sue you for support, we can counterclaim with evidence of her affair with David. Over the next 2 weeks, Amanda filed all the paperwork. David was served with divorce papers at his office in front of his colleagues. I specifically requested that delivery method. I wanted everyone at Kensington Financial to see him being served. The next day, I got a call from David's lawyer, a man named Richard Thornton, who had a reputation as a shark. "Mrs. Morrison," he said smoothly, "I represent David Morrison. I've reviewed your divorce filing, and I have to say, some of your demands are quite unreasonable. My client is willing to negotiate a fair settlement, but these scorched earth tactics aren't going to benefit anyone. Mr. Thornton, your client had an affair with my daughter. He got her pregnant. He stole $85,000 from our joint accounts to fund this affair. He then tried to have me declared mentally incompetent when I discovered the truth. I don't think my demands are unreasonable at all. In fact, I think I'm being quite generous by not pursuing criminal charges for theft. Mrs. Morrison, the money in your joint accounts belong to both of you." The money came from my inheritance and my investments. David's salary barely covered his own expenses. Every significant asset we have came from my side. Check the bank records. There was a pause. "I'll need to review the financial documents more carefully. But Mrs. Morrison, I have to warn you. If you pursue this aggressively, my client will have no choice but to make this very public. Details about your family situation will come out. Are you prepared for that?" "Mr. Thornton," I said, "I have already told my entire neighborhood. I plan to tell everyone I know. Your client's threats of exposure don't scare me. The truth is on my side." After I hung up, I realized I meant every word. I wasn't ashamed. I hadn't done anything wrong. David and Sarah had made their choices. Now they could live with the consequences of those choices being known. That afternoon, I went to visit my mother's grave. I hadn't been there in months. I sat on the grass next to her headstone and told her everything. "Mom," I said, "I'm sorry I wasted the money you left me. I'm sorry I spent it on people who didn't deserve it. But I promise you, from now on, I'm going to honor your memory by taking care of myself the way you always wanted me to." I felt something shift inside me, a release of guilt, of obligation, of the need to be perfect. The divorce proceedings took 3 months. David fought every step of the way, but Amanda was relentless. She presented the evidence of the affair, the financial theft, the betrayal. She brought in expert witnesses who testified about the psychological impact of this kind of familial betrayal. The judge, a woman in her 60s named Judge Patricia Coleman, listened to everything with a stony expression. When it came time for her ruling, she looked directly at David. "Mr. Morrison," she said, "I have presided over hundreds of divorce cases in my career. I have seen every kind of betrayal, every kind of deception. But what you did to your wife, having an affair with her daughter, a young woman you helped raise, is among the most egregious breaches of trust I have ever encountered." David's lawyer tried to interrupt, but Judge Coleman held up her hand. "Mrs. Morrison is awarded full ownership of the marital home. Mr. Morrison is ordered to repay $85,000 to Mrs. Morrison for funds misappropriated from joint accounts. Mrs. Morrison is ordered to pay all of Mrs. Morrison's legal fees, which currently total $47,000. Mrs. Morrison retains full control of all retirement accounts and investments that originated from her inheritance. Mr. Morrison is awarded nothing." David's face went white. His lawyer started to object, but Judge Coleman cut him off. "Furthermore, I am issuing a restraining order. Mr. Morrison is not to contact Mrs. Morrison except through legal counsel for a period of 5 years. Any violation will result in immediate arrest. This court is adjourned." I walked out of that courtroom with Amanda by my side, feeling lighter than I had in 15 years. "You did it, Amanda," said, smiling. "You won." "No," I said. "I survived. There's a difference." The hardest part came next, dealing with Sarah. She had been calling from different numbers, sending emails, showing up at my house. Each time, I refused to engage. Finally, she came to the house one evening and wouldn't leave. She sat on my front porch, crying, begging me to talk to her. I opened the door. "Mom, please," she sobbed. "Please forgive me. I made a terrible mistake. David left me. He said he can't afford to support me anymore now that you took everything. I have nowhere to go. Please, I'm your daughter." I looked at this young woman who shared my DNA, who I gave birth to, raised, loved, and sacrificed everything for. And I felt nothing. No anger, no love, no connection. "Sarah," I said quietly, "you stopped being my daughter the moment you got involved with David. You made your choice. You chose a man over your mother. You chose money and excitement over family loyalty. Now you have to live with that choice being known." "But Mom, I was confused. He manipulated me. Can't you see that?" "Maybe he did," I said. "But you're 24 years old. You're an adult. You had 2 years to end it, to tell me the truth, to make the right choice. You didn't. Not until you were pregnant and scared. I'm sorry. How many times do I have to say it? I'm sorry." "Sorry doesn't give me back 2 years of my life," I said. "Sorry doesn't undo the betrayal. Sorry doesn't erase the fact that you looked me in the eye every holiday, every birthday, every Sunday dinner, and lied to me while sleeping with my husband." "So what am I supposed to do?" she screamed. "Just disappear? Pretend I don't have a mother?" "You figured out how to betray me," I said. "I'm sure you'll figure out how to survive without me. You're resourceful when you need to be." I closed the door and locked it. I heard her crying on the porch for another hour before she finally left. That night, I slept better than I had in months. The aftermath took time to settle. David lost his job at Kensington Financial, not because of the affair, officially, but because the scandal made clients uncomfortable. He had built his career on being a trustworthy family man, and now everyone knew the truth. Sarah moved back with her biological father in another state. We haven't spoken in 3 months. Maybe one day we will, maybe not. I've made peace with either outcome. As for me, I did something I hadn't done in 20 years. I started living for myself. I used some of the settlement money to take a trip to Italy, something I had always dreamed of. I walked the streets of Rome, ate pasta in small trattorias, and didn't think about anyone but myself. I reconnected with old friends I had neglected during my marriage. I started taking pottery classes. I began volunteering at a women's shelter, helping other women escape toxic relationships. And I started dating again. Nothing serious, just coffee and conversation with interesting people who treated me with respect. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I was having lunch with Patricia when she asked me if I had any regrets. About the divorce? No, I said immediately. What about Sarah? Do you regret cutting her off? I thought about it carefully. I regret what happened. I regret that she made the choices she did. But I don't regret protecting myself. For too long, I sacrificed my own well-being for other people. I'm done with that. You've changed, Patricia observed. You're stronger now. No, I corrected her. I'm not stronger. I'm just finally strong enough to protect myself. There's a difference. Today, I'm 46 years old. I live alone in my house, and I've never been happier. I have enough money to live comfortably. I have friends who value me. I have hobbies and interests and a life that belongs entirely to me. Sometimes people ask me if I'm lonely. The truth is, I was lonelier in my marriage than I am now. I was lonelier when I had a daughter who betrayed me than I am now with no daughter at all. Because I've learned something important. Being alone is not the same as being lonely. And sometimes the people who are supposed to love you are the ones who hurt you the most. I don't know if David and Sarah ever think about what they lost. I don't know if they regret their choices. Honestly, I don't care anymore. What I do know is this: I got my life back. I got my self-respect back. I got my future back. And that's worth more than any relationship that required me to betray myself to maintain it. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of the story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.